Today, we will try to understand how the system failed this girl and what lessons we all must learn from her story. In a disturbing murder case, 10-year-old Imani Moss starved to death before her body was burned in a trash can. Dear viewers, I warn you that the following story will be extremely heavy and may shock you. But I cannot remain silent about what happened to Imani Moss because her story is not just the tragedy of one family, but a symptom of deep problems in our society. Before we dive into the details, let me welcome all new viewers of Underworld Exposé. Please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on new videos. Please give it a like, share the video with your friends, and be sure to watch it to the end to hear the full story. Imani Moss was born on April 23, 2003, in the city of Atlanta, Georgia. She was one of 5 children born to her biological mother, who struggled with addiction and eventually gave up parental rights to all of her children. Imani's father, Emin Moss, became her sole guardian. Imani's birth mother had no further contact with her daughter. However, despite this, teachers described Imani as always being a bright and happy child. Imani always had a smile on her face and was a great friend to all students, including even the class bully, whom she tried to befriend every day, they said. Imani was primarily raised by her father, a man, but she was also adored by her grandmother, Robin, along with her aunt, Charisse. Eman frequently took the girl to the Freedom Christian Church. It was there that he met Tiffany Moss, who worked as a kindergarten teacher. They quickly hit it off, and over the next few years began a romantic relationship. When she'd see your face, I said, "It's not a day that won't change, Miss Moss. You're amazing just the way you are." "Yeah, and when you smile," I said, "the whole world stops and stands for a while, Miss Moss. You're amazing just the way you are. Appreciate you." In July 2009, the couple married and had 2 children together. Everything was going great until tragedy struck less than a year after the wedding. Tiffany began physically abusing 6-year-old Imani. The girl told a school nurse that she was afraid to go home with a bad report card because she was worried her parents would harm her. She also mentioned that her stepmother had beaten her with a curtain rod. The nurse then discovered numerous scabs, bruises, and welts on Imani's arms, back, chest, legs, and shoulders. The girl was then taken to the police station, and Tiffany was arrested and charged with first-degree child cruelty. Tiffany confessed to hitting Imani 3 times with a brown leather belt for eating too slowly. She later pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 years of probation under Georgia's first offender program, and also lost her teaching job. But just a few months later, the Georgia Department of Family and Children's Services closed the case after Tiffany and Eamon completed parenting courses. During this period, Imani was removed from the Moss home and placed with her grandmother, Robin, for 6 months. It was noticeable that Imani began to thrive. Her grades in school significantly improved, her overall attitude improved, and Robin noted that the girl was a wonderful child under her care. It seemed like everything in her life had calmed down again. However, DFCS returned Imani to the Moss home after 6 months. Robin tried to persuade her son, Iman, to let Imani stay, but he insisted on taking her back. Over the next 2 years, the abuse continued. In July 2012, it was documented that Imani tried to run away from home twice. In one of those instances, she went to the apartment office and told management that she wanted to run away because Tiffany had tied her up with a belt and put her under a cold shower. Police responded, but Tiffany and Iman told them in response that the girl was lying. Since there wasn't enough evidence to charge anyone, Imani was returned to the Moss home. In another instance, Imani ran away and was found sleeping in the bushes of a neighboring apartment complex. She was found by a police officer, to whom she said she ran away because her stepmother was mistreating her. Shockingly, the officer reported the case to DFCS and filed charges against Imani for running away and violating curfew to ensure she would appear in juvenile court. From 2011 to the summer of 2013, the Moss family moved around Georgia, sometimes living with relatives. Imani's father, Emin, worked long hours and rarely saw her except on weekends. As they began living on their own, Imani rarely saw members of her extended family. This continued until Mother's Day. Emin's sister Charisse invited the Moss family over to her house for Mother's Day, along with his mother, Robin. Instantly, Charisse and Robin noticed that Imani's hair had been cut. When Robin asked Tiffany about this, she replied, "If you act ugly, you'll look ugly." They also noticed that Imani's behavior had become more timid than they remembered. Despite all the abuse at home, she somehow maintained good grades and a relatively positive attitude at school. After the end of the 2012 to 2013 school year, the Mosses announced their intention to take Imani out of public school and homeschool her. Imani's aunt, Charisse, openly objected to this decision and even called DFCS to intervene, but her concerns were ignored, as they refused to do anything about it because the Moss family already had 2 younger children at home. Imani was now completely isolated from any contact with the outside world. On August 6, 2013, DFCS received an anonymous report that Imani was suffering from neglect by her father and stepmother and looked thin. However, they did not even bother to visit the home after the report, allegedly because they did not have a current address and information about the ongoing abuse. Mother's Day was the last time any of Imani's family saw her. The Moss family moved into an apartment in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Now that Imani had been taken out of school, family couldn't see her. At this time, Iman was working 2 jobs, which made him even more absent from the home. He would leave for his first job early in the morning, briefly come home late in the afternoon, and leave again for his second job around 6 p.m., finally getting home around midnight. This left Imani and her siblings mostly under the care of Tiffany, or more accurately, no care at all. Although there were no records indicating that Tiffany's biological children suffered abuse, this didn't stop her from continuing to abuse Imani. Sometime after the summer of 2013, Tiffany began starving Imani. She had always been a thin child, but she was noticeably becoming thinner and thinner. It's believed that this went on for several weeks, and during all this time, she was confined to her bedroom. New neighbors only saw the 2 younger children and had no idea they had an older sister. Eventually, Imani became too weak to move and couldn't get out of bed, urinate, or defecate. Tiffany would feed and take care of her biological children, but deny Imani food. On a few occasions, she would text Emin photos of the meals she had made for their children, and in one case, she texted him to bring home cookie dough so she could bake cookies. Imani would have had to smell the cookies being baked while lying in her room on the brink of starvation. On October 24, 2013, Imani suffered a seizure, which Emin believed was a convulsion. He claimed that when he came home, Tiffany told him that something was wrong with Imani. He then went to the bathroom and found Imani in the bathtub on the floor, shaking. She was unresponsive and her eyes kept rolling back. Instead of calling paramedics or taking her to the emergency room, he carried Imani back to her bed, where she lay for the next few days. During those days, Iman would visit her and try to feed her, but unsuccessfully. Tragically, she passed away on October 28, 2013. Iman learned of her death when Tiffany called him while he was at work to deliver the news. When he returned home, everything in the house seemed normal. The children were playing and Tiffany was watching TV while Imani lay dead in her room upstairs. When he went upstairs, he found his daughter lying on a blanket on the floor of her bedroom. He told Tiffany that they should call the police, but unsurprisingly, Tiffany refused, fearing they would lose their 2 other children. Instead, she insisted that they needed to hide her body. So, Emin wrapped Imani's body in a blanket and put her back in bed. Incredibly, the couple kept Imani's body in the apartment for several more days, and their lives largely returned to normal. Emin claimed he went to work and came home to spend time with Imani's body, grieving. Since the couple had agreed to conceal Imani's death, Tiffany went to the store and bought new sheets and a new jumpsuit after the ones that were on her bed were still soiled with excrement and urine. Tiffany suggested they burn her and report her missing, so they did it. Emin went to Walmart to buy a galvanized trash can, garbage bags, charcoal, and lighter fluid. On Halloween, Tiffany and Eamon decided to put her body in the trash can and burn it. When they tried to fit her into the trash can, they realized how stiff her body was with 4th stage rigor mortis, so they had to manually break Imani's bones. Then they used duct tape to bend and compress her bones together. Emin covered her with a blanket before stuffing her into a trash bag and into the trash can. The next morning, they transported the trash can in the back seat of their car, with their 2 other children in the car, looking for a place to burn it. Eventually, they found a secluded spot and pulled the trash can with Imani's body out of the car. They added pieces of charcoal to the bottom of the can, doused the body with lighter fluid, and set it on fire. As they watched her body burn, they realized it wouldn't burn to ashes. After about 5 minutes, they put out the fire and returned to their apartment, but Imani's body was still in the trash can. The day after the attempted burning, a man went to work with Imani's body still in his car. At work, he confessed the crime to a friend who insisted that he contact the police. After returning from both jobs and thinking things over, he called the police at around 4 in the morning, saying that his daughter was not well and that he was having suicidal thoughts. Emin told Tiffany about his call to the police. Tiffany immediately began to pack up her belongings, leaving the trash can containing Imani's remains in a grassy area of the apartment complex, and fled with the children in the family car. When police arrived, Emin told them that Imani had drunk chemicals and died. He claimed he panicked, put her body in the trash can, and tried to cremate the body. The police were shocked to see Imani's burnt body in a garbage can in the yard, and didn't believe his story, which immediately made him and Tiffany suspects. What appeared to be some type of office was a computer in here. There was a note on the wall that had class rules. Try your best, smile, stay motivated, and have fun. Going straight back, this is going to be what appeared to be the master bedroom. Still in the master bedroom, there was a small sofa or love seat type furniture. Moving back into the dining room, it's kind of an open floor plan with a dining room, living area, and the kitchen. We're moving into the kitchen at this point. Those items had been pulled out from underneath the sink by one of our specialists. Receipts, bedding that appeared to be unopened sheets, and a bottle of lotion. Pantry. Eamon was immediately arrested, and a search began for Tiffany. After some time on the run, Tiffany eventually left the children at her mother's house and decided to turn herself in to the police. Quite quickly, Eamon confessed that he lied about reporting that Imani had drunk chemicals herself. Did you ever see any problems between Imani and Tiffany while you were at Pearls? Yes. Tell me about those. Ever since going back to 2010, ever since then, it was like a love-hate relationship. Explain to the jury what you mean by a love-hate relationship. You know, her and Imani was like, it was always something. They couldn't get along. Did you ever know of Tiffany from 2010 after 2010 to discipline Imani? No, not until the incident. All right, I want to ask you, when I say discipline, okay, what does discipline a child mean to you at that time? Spanking. But are there other ways to discipline children? Yes. Is sending them to bed without their supper a way of disciplining a child? No, that's not. Is putting them in a corner and putting them in timeout a discipline for a child? Yes. So, you said that Tiffany didn't discipline Imani. Are you aware of whether or not she used any of the other things, other than a spanking, to correct her behavior? Yes. After let me go back. When we had the incident where she spanked Imani in 2010, we had to take a class. I took a called the Fatherhood program. And I think she had to take anger management, and then we had in-home counseling. Because at the time, I was not aware of the other forms of discipline. Because, I grew up from old school. You got a spanking and that was it. So you learned about other forms of discipline, but at the time, you didn't know? But, spanking. And so, after 2010, did you decide that you were going to use the other forms of discipline other than spanking? Yes. And do you know whether or not Tiffany did that too? Yes, best of my knowledge, I think she did. Right. And so you moved in, did you say in September of 2013? Yeah, to the apartment. Yes, sir. Where did you live? Did you ever live with your mother? Yes, that was, you talking about me and Tiffany, or you and Tiffany and the children? No, sir. Not the three of you didn't live there? No. Did Imani ever live with your mother? Yes, during the incident in 2010. And after that, was Imani placed with your mother? No, sir. How did she end up over there then? You said at my mom's house. Yeah, how'd she get in 2010? We had the spanking incident. Tiffany spanked Imani. She had welts and stuff, all on her arms and back. I think legs. A belt whip, okay? Emin was charged and pleaded guilty to felony murder and concealing a death. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole in exchange for agreeing to testify against his wife, Tiffany, who rejected a plea deal that would have allowed her to receive the same sentence. Instead, the case against Tiffany Moss went to trial. Tiffany was appointed attorneys for her case, but she chose to represent herself, going against the judge's advice. Instead of representation, she had attorneys acting as standby counsel to answer any legal questions. Accordingly, she did not give an opening statement, conduct cross-examination of witnesses, or deliver a closing argument. She faced 1 count of malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of child cruelty, and 1 count of concealing a death, a total of 6 charges, and she firmly believed that God would help her through it. On the other hand, the prosecution presented 18 witnesses, including Imani's aunt, Charisse, her grandmother, Robin, and her 4th grade teacher. They also had her father, Iman, testify, along with the medical examiner. The most shocking of all the information that came out during the trial was Imani's malnourishment. When she was found, she weighed only 30 pounds, and the medical examiner stated that she was nothing more than skin and bones. The medical examiner added that, based on her weight, loss of muscle mass, and the fact that her organs were so small compared to normal parameters, she was able to conclude that the girl died of starvation. When jurors were shown autopsy photos of Imani, the weight loss was evident, and several jurors were forced to look away, with one crying. Tiffany Moss never looked up once. Emin testified that Imani ate a lot when he saw her on weekends when he was responsible for the children. The district attorney on the case argued for the court not to give Tiffany a life sentence, regardless of parole, and to never let her out because she will never change. They said, "She's shown you too much of her ability to be cruel. There will always be that dark side that's waiting to come out." On May 1st, 36-year-old Tiffany Moss was sentenced to death by lethal injection. Verdict as to penalty, count 1, murder. We, the jury, recommend and fix the penalty as death. Signed and dated by the foreperson. Please give it to counsel for their review. Any exceptions to the form of the verdict by the state? None from the state as form. Any exceptions to the form of the verdict by the defense? No. Ladies and gentlemen, under these circumstances, it's necessary that the court conduct a poll of the jury. It simply means that I have a series of questions. On May 1st, 36-year-old Tiffany Moss was sentenced to death by lethal injection. She became the first person to be sentenced to death in the state of Georgia in over 5 years. The judge scheduled her execution for sometime between June 7th and 14th, 2019, although that date continues to change due to appeals. Emin and Tiffany remained married and lost custody of their 2 children after Imani's murder. The children were sent to live with foster parents despite attempts by both Tiffany and Emin's parents to gain custody of them. Imani's death led to serious criticism and forced systemic changes in Georgia's child protection system. Following her death, several DFCS employees were fired and others faced disciplinary action. It also led to changes in how they conduct investigations and reports of abuse. A Child Welfare Reform Council was created, which released a report in January 2015 on ways to improve Georgia's child welfare system. In 2018, Imani's grandmother, Robin, filed a lawsuit against DFCS, claiming they knew about the deteriorating conditions and abuse in the Moss household and could have acted sooner. However, there has been no information on the outcome of that lawsuit since then. Iman is currently serving his sentence at Smith State Prison in Glenville, Georgia. Tiffany is currently at Orendale State Prison and is the only woman on death row in Georgia. When she is eventually executed, she will become the 3rd woman in Georgia since 1945. This case was incredibly difficult to report on, but it highlights the negligence and failure of DFCS and those around Imani to protect her from the evils of those responsible for caring for her. May Tiffany swiftly be sent to the afterlife, and may Iman live remorsefully with the guilt of killing Imani, and may Imani blissfully rest in heaven. I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who watched this video all the way through. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case in the comments, and please don't forget to subscribe to Underworld Exposé. I'd also like to send a special thank you to everyone who has donated to support my channel. Your support means the world to me and gives me the motivation to keep making new and interesting investigations for you, my wonderful viewers. Thank you all so much.